Terence Crawford could go down as the greatest fighter of this decade. That's how good Terence Crawford has been. And really, a lot of fighters have been ducking and weaving him. This was the first big fight he's had in his career against one of the most dominant opponents of his era in Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez, as everybody says, he's gone out there and fought practically every fighter that wanted to fight him, which is a lie, by the way. He's been ducking and weaving fighters. Trust me, Canelo Alvarez has ducked Triple G for many, many years until he fought him. And by the way, Triple G probably won 2 out of those 3 fights. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree. I don't care. If you watch boxing, you would know that Canelo Alvarez was absolutely beaten up by Triple G. But I don't think I've ever seen Canelo Alvarez be dominated in a fight like Terence Bud Crawford. Everybody was talking about the size difference. Being at 168, Canelo walks at almost 185, and Bud probably walks at the weight that he was fighting at 168, maybe a little bit less, 160. You think about it, and Joba, you say down, but if you think about it, Terence actually drops 25 pounds a fight to fight in a lower class. And to jump 20 pounds to fight one of the more powerful boxers, one of the powerful punchers in the 168 division, probably one of the best pound-for-pound knockout punchers of all time in Canelo Alvarez, it said a lot about what Terence wanted to prove. Now, Terence is going to be 38 this month. This might be his final fight. I don't know. He didn't really come out after the fight and said this is his final fight. But assuming that it is, you look at the decade of great fighters and some of the fighters that we're going to compare and contrast who he was, the Manny Pacquiaos of the world, the Andre Wards of the world, guys that were dominant forces, dominant fighters in their weight classes. Even Floyd Mayweather, who I think, to me, Bud is a better fighter than Floyd Mayweather. Because if you look at what Bud has done, not just dominated his weight class and different divisions, but the way he did it in proper fashion. Remember, he's an ambidextrous fighter. He's not just a lefty. And he fought Canelo Alvarez as a southpaw practically the whole fight. And Canelo Alvarez actually headbutted him in the 7th or 8th round. Canelo was so dominated in this fight, I don't even think Canelo Alvarez won more than 1, maybe even 2 rounds in this fight. That's how dominant Bud was. He dominated this fight. And Canelo, yeah, he had a couple of good shots at him in certain rounds, and he had a couple of good body shots. It didn't bother Terence. Terence was not bothered. He was shaking his head the whole fight. When he did land something that hurt him, he was shaking yes. You just saw the dominant fighter that Bud has been year in and year out. And what makes him so unique and so different is the fact that the trials and tribulations he's been through in his career. Bud was shot in the face. Bud was shot more than once in his face, and he drove himself all the way to the hospital to get patched up. This is a guy that's gone through so many different things in his career and his life. Family situations, built and grown up in poverty. He had nothing. If you know anything about Bud, he really has gone through so many different things. Family members that have been shot and dead and killed. The story behind Terence Bud Crawford is very, very unique. It's not like he came from a family of boxers. He didn't. He was pushed into boxing early in his life because his mom wanted to get him off the streets from drug dealing and doing the things that his brothers were doing and his family, his father was doing. And to see this guy year in and year out not get the props that he deserved because he never fought the top fighters in his division because the guys in his division weren't that any good. And when they did fight him, they were at the tail end of their careers. So Bud really never fought guys that really were above the top fighters in the world, the top 10 fighters of the world. And that's why Bud was never put as the best pound-for-pound fighter of his decade. And now going into a fight like Canelo Alvarez, and Canelo Alvarez, they sold it very, very well. Congratulations to Netflix. Finally, they nailed this out of the ballpark. Watched internationally, nationally. I think there was more eyes on this fight than any fight, wrestling, anything they've done live in history of Netflix. What made this fight so unique and so special is the fact that after the fight, when Bud went out there, and these guys did not like each other during the fight, they were trying to sell this. I can walk out of this ring, me and Canelo can walk out of this ring and go home to our families. This wasn't a fight where we were killing each other. We went out there and we boxed each other, and we took it and we ended it right here in the middle of the ring. And that says a lot about Bud. He loves boxing. He stood, and Max Kellerman, who I love Max. Max is an enthusiast, a boxing enthusiast, love everything about him. What Max said very, very much before the fight, he said, if Bud loses this fight, is Bud going to be another boxer that is going to be forgotten? And why? Because he never fought any top fighter in his years, his 41 fights. And he said, if you look at the fighters that he fought, nobody's going to say that these guys were at the top of their weight classes or one of the best pound-for-pound fighters of all time in their weight classes. He said that either that happens or he beats Canelo Alvarez and he makes history in one of the most underdog fights we've ever seen a boxer win and go down as the best fighter of this decade. Bud Crawford, what he did against Canelo Alvarez, I don't think we'll ever see. I watched Triple G fight him. Alvarez has how many losses now? He has 3 losses. He's lost 2. He lost one against Floyd Mayweather, and he lost against the Russian guy. When Canelo lost that fight against Floyd, it was early in his career. He was a young fighter. This fight, out of all the fights that Canelo fought, and they were so very close, this was just so dominated by Bud Crawford, it wasn't even close. I don't even think you can argue that this fight was even close. The fact the scorecard was 116, 112, 115, 113, 115, 113 is a catastrophe. Because to me, the scores were like, in my eyes, 119, 110, 119, 118, 111. They weren't even close. It was absolutely dominated by Bud Crawford. It wasn't even close. Wasn't even close. I think Canelo won 1 round. My friend says at best he won 2 rounds out of the 12 rounds. Absolutely dominated by Terence Bud Crawford. Congratulations to him. If this is the last fight we see Bud fight, he is the best fighter of this decade. I don't think you can argue that anymore.
It's a little different when you're from Nebraska and get to meet him and see the type of dude he is. And I mean, it's just crazy to see now. I mean, obviously people are like, you're from where? And if you guys watch the documentary on Netflix, you know, they say, and he still fights at Omaha. Him and BMAC have their gym, and it's just a really cool story. Cool dude. Like, I mean, you'll see him at the most random things. Like, I met him at a WWE event. He was sitting behind us, and the way he does everything, I mean, literally Nebraska, they wore Crawford shirts on Saturday. Dan and the AD and Matt Rule, our head coach, hopped on a private jet. They were at the fight. There were tons of Nebraska people, and just the way he did it. And you tried to say that, you know, they were trying to go home and what they said. I think the coolest thing, I don't know if you guys watched it, but he took all the belts when he won. But when it was all over, Crawford went back and gave them all to Canelo because those are still his belts. They just don't change hands. Like those were his. And he goes, I didn't want my team to do it. I wanted to be the one to give him because he's earned it. And they have such a mutual respect for each other. And Canelo at the same time, dude's 35 and he's fought 68 times. Crawford's going to be 38. I mean, that's over almost 40, 30 some rounds and whatever. Like, that's a lot more miles on Canelo than there is Bud. But he's going to go down and do what everybody was questioning his chin. Is he going to be able to handle the punches? And Canelo walks heavier than that, by the way. I talked to some Crawford guys. Mm-hmm. Canelo walks. There was no, I don't know if you guys know this, but there was no dehydration clause. No. So if you'd have seen Canelo weigh in and how dehydrated, so he could have fought at 200. There was no clause, and for people that don't understand what that is, mm-hmm. you can be as dehydrated as you want, whatever, yep. and you can come back. There's no weight that you have to fight at the next day. There are times where they put that in play. So he could have fought above his weight, and it wouldn't have mattered. He didn't put a clause in it.
They said he was up at least 15 pounds from the weight.
Oh, 100%. And Bud wanted this fight for 2 years. It wasn't about the money for Bud. It never is. No, and it's nice, too. And Canelo made way more money than Bud did. It wasn't about that for him. We take pride in Nebraska for what we have because, you know, there's very few things that come out of here that people actually continue to love and stress. I mean, still has Omaha in his shorts, still loves everything about it. All his dudes walking out with Nebraska hats on. And until you come here and see the love that this place has for people that do it and then are still here and still repping for what we do, man, it's a special place to live. I'm so proud to call myself a Nebraskan, to see this young man he'll be 38 yep. on the 28th of September, to see all the things that he's done for kids and for people that maybe don't have the opportunity, but signifies the fact that it doesn't matter where you start. You can always make yourself a something. And, you know, he's done crazy cool things that not a lot of people see because he's in Nebraska. Like he's not out. He's not flashy. He doesn't do all these things that a lot of other superstars do. And he's always been a superstar, and people from Nebraska guys, I think people are just seeing it now, unless you are a true boxing fan. It was so fun to see.